Hi guys, welcome back. For those who decided to stay, thank you so much. And those who hopped on, welcome to leave. And we're gonna go into part 2 of this webinar, which is McGill University. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of you guys will know LEAP by now, but yeah, LEAP is here really just to help all high school students bridge the gap between high school and post-secondary. But yeah, we'll go right into it and introduce our McGill University panelists. So Charles, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Charles Choi. I am a fourth year political science and Canadian studies student at McGill. I'm originally from Richmond Hill, Ontario. I'm working right now in the summer at Veterans Affairs Canada as a junior project officer, and starting next Monday, I'll be working at Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship as a analyst. I've been involved in a lot of SMU, McGill services and extracurriculars. So if you have any questions about that, Faculty of Arts, just send me a message on LinkedIn or send me a question on the chat. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you, Charles. Next one we have is Sam.
Hi everyone, my name is Sam, and I'm currently at business development at NextGen HQ, where I help large corporations like Dell, Capital One, and Target connect with next generation startups. In a couple of weeks, I'll be headed to the UK, where I'll be looking to complete my master's degree at Imperial College London. For me, I really looked at McGill as a period of exploration. I have internship experience in multiple industries, for example, consulting, asset management, and also sports management. So if any of you guys, want to ask any questions about that, please DM me. And outside of school and academics, my interests are basketball, fitness, and entrepreneurship.
Awesome, thank you so much, Sam. Next up, we're gonna have Emily.
Hi everyone, my name's Emily, and I'm a third-year student at McGill. I'm majoring in microbiome and immunology, and I'm also minoring in psychology. Some of the things I'm involved in on campus is a thing called our emergency response team. So there I'm like a student paramedic. I'm also an orientation staff for Frosh, if any of you guys have any questions about that. I know that's coming up soon, specifically science Frosh, if you have any questions. And some of my interests are cooking and marathon running. And yeah, I love McGill because the major I'm in really lets me kind of take the classes that I really want to do, especially in microbiology. And yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much, Emily. And last but not least, we have Ryan.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Ryan Brown. I'm just entering my second year at McGill, and I'm in the School of Religious Studies with a minor in poli-sci. Back in Owen Sound, Ontario, which is where I'm from, I was the organizer of my small town's first Pride Parade. So my experience is more in grassroots organizing. I was also a student trustee in Ontario and did things with that. And I'm a 2019 McCall McBain Loran Scholar, and very excited to be here.
Awesome, thank you so much, Ryan. Okay, so now that you've met all our lovely panelists, we're going to go into our panel discussion. And just quick note for all the attendees, please turn off your cameras and mute your audio. And also feel free to send in the chat if you have any urgent questions, but we also will have an open Q&A period specifically to answer any questions that you guys have that you can send in the chat as well. So let's go into our first question. So why did you choose McGill University? And we can start with Emily.
Yeah, so like I just kind of started saying, so I'm in microbiome, and it's been really amazing. For my freshman year, I got to take all my science courses. So like I did physics, chemistry, all the basic courses that I needed as a freshman. And right into sophomore year, I got to get right into microbiome. I got to do a bunch of labs, and this year I'm taking just all microbiome classes. And just even freshman program, it's helped me prepare for my pre-med. And also, as a sophomore, I could already prepare for the MCAT and take it this summer.
Awesome, thank you, Emily. Next one we'll have is Charles.
I really like the campus at McGill. I was I always wanted to move away for school. So I was thinking of UBC in Vancouver, McGill. I only applied to U of T because my parents forced me to. But I went to all the campuses, visited around, and I really enjoyed the campus and I saw myself living here. So that's why I chose Montreal. To touch upon the Europeans, like I said, culture, it's very much, there's a very nice work-life balance. So after work or after school, you'll find that a lot of friends go out together while managing, their work, their school, their lifestyle. So I really enjoyed that. And I wanted to work for the government, so I really needed to brush up on my French. I have what we call Ontario French, which is not that great, if you know. So I used to work at Starbucks in Ontario, and I was able to transfer over and practice my French. So it's very helpful.
Good for you for getting out of your shell to practice your French. I think I'd be too scared, honestly. I feel like I'd be judged really hard. But thank you so much, Charles. Next one we have is Sam.
Yeah, got a +1 to what Charles said. Downtown Montreal is really amazing. And as most of you know, McGill's campus is literally in the center of downtown. But when it is not under construction, the campus is a great place to be. For the reason why I picked McGill, when I was in high school, I went to an international school and I really loved, interacting with a bunch of diverse students who came from different countries. And, given McGill's diverse background, that was like a home run for me.
Definitely, yeah, definitely all the diversity. Thank you, Sam. And last but not least, we'll have Ryan.
I'm kind of the same in that I wanted to get out of Owen Sound, Ontario. And Montreal is a really spectacular city, a really spectacular student city, and a really fun place to be. And, unlike some of the other campuses across Canada, McGill is fairly uniquely contained geographically while still being downtown. A lot of downtown campuses like U of T and Ryerson, for instance, are really spread out in Toronto, whereas McGill is kind of its own little center. And that was really appealing to me.
That's definitely a good point for sure. Thank you. Next up, we'll have what are some common mistakes that first years make? What would you tell your first year self? We can have Sam go first.
Yeah, in terms of what I would tell my first year self, I would definitely tell myself to join more student clubs and organizations. Some of the companies that I'm looking to apply to now, like for example, the MPPs and also the Big Four consulting firms, they all look for, students that are not just academically talented. They want leaders. And I feel like, if I were to join more student clubs, I would have had more opportunities in that sense. And also just to network more. And I thought, I'd also want to share one of the best pieces of advice I actually ever received was, to really leverage the power of having a .edu email address. As incoming freshmen, which I assume most of you are, I'd highly recommend, to use the fact that you're all relatively young and inexperienced to your advantage. One of my mentors shared with me so many stories where he was the youngest person in a room in a high stress environment and he still came out on top. Many times professionals and experts, they have limited ways of viewing things. And as up and comers, you guys have the opportunity to make a lot of unique contributions because you view problems in a different way. So what I'm really trying to say is once you acknowledge your age and position, you put it out into the open and you work to move past it by demanding respect, people will do anything to work with you. And then from then on, your age really becomes your superpower.
That's a very good point. That's some very solid advice, Sam. Thank you. Next up, we'll have Charles.
Yeah, just adding to Sam's point, you're coming in as a first year, second year, or you just as an undergraduate student, you have the benefit that you're a student. So whether you make mistakes while doing a job, whether you're making mistakes at school, I'm not saying, continue your mistakes, but when you make that mistake, your professor or your supervisor, they'll be more forgiving or understanding and will help you to take it as a learning opportunity. So don't be scared to try new things. Network earlier, what I mean by that is my current job and the job I'm going into next week, I didn't apply through a job portal or a job application online. It was through, contacting different people, knowing the right people. And there's a lot of networking events on campus as well. And if you network, even with your professor, going to their office hours, um, they can get you into, research positions, find you different jobs, get you interviews. So you never know who's going to be able to offer you that job. You never know who's going to be in the hiring position. So just network, 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 always maintain a great relationship. One mistake that I made was having difficulty balancing my social life, my work life, my school, and just my life in general. I come from the suburbs of the Greater Toronto area. So, to go to the movie theaters, it took me 30 minutes by bus. Um, so living downtown, it was just, everything was accessible. I would go out way too often. It's first year, I would socialize a lot, not balance my schoolwork that well. And I also work 20 hours a week. So maybe, like if you're in the same position, try to decrease the amount of work you're doing. And although get that first year experience, make sure that, school is always a priority as well.
Definitely. Thank you, Charles. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think there's like two spectrums to it. Either you're kind of you focus too much on school and totally forget about your social life, or focus too much on your social life and forget totally about school. So definitely, like I think every university says like time management and balance is one of the biggest things that you have to grasp in university for sure. Emily, would you like to add on to anything?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what my fellow panelists said earlier about trying to find the right balance to how to just manage life in general. But I think there's definitely three big aspects of your college career. So like you have your academics, you have your social life, and you also have your extracurriculars. And it's really hard to kind of be just really good at all three. So I think you definitely have to choose, I think max like two of them of which you really want to focus on, and one you just have to kind of balance into your life.
Sure. Thank you, Emily. And Ryan, would you like to add on to anything?
Yeah, just really quickly, I'm not like a super networker type. Naturally, maybe it's because I came from a small town. But the one thing that I think is really valuable that people told me was valuable and I perhaps didn't take as seriously as I should is go visit your prof's office hours and your TAs, because not only will they give you really good advice for specifically what's going on in the class at that moment. One prof meeting that I had like totally changed my whole degree. It's like the reason I'm in religious studies and I'm super happy with it now. So I very much recommend connecting with your profs and TAs.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. And especially in your first year, you're going to find that you're in classes, like compared to high school, you're going to be in classes with like 700 kids. Being in office hours really has that like dedicated time towards that professor one-on-one and very more genuineness and more catered help as well. So for sure. Thank you so much. And then on to the next one. How is the social life environment and culture like at McGill and Montreal? Emily, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. The culture is definitely very work hard, play hard. I notice a lot of people starting from like their 8:30 classes, they'll just go to classes and right after they'll fit into their schedule, like when they can go to the library, grab a really quick lunch and just kind of keep working until maybe like 4 or 5. And that's when, you can kind of take a break, hang out with your friends, especially if you're going to be in res. It's going to be hard to focus on your work at night when people are going to be knocking on your doors trying to say hi and stuff. So I would definitely say that people work really hard during the day, and at night they can kind of just hang out with their friends, go out for sure. And another thing is like Montreal's just like an amazing like place to be as a student. Like sometimes I guess people kind of get trapped in like the McGill bubble, and where kind of stick with the same people around and don't really get to explore. So I definitely would say try to like get out of it.
For sure. Thank you, Emily. Next up, Charles, you said you agree with the kind of work hard, play hard that Emily said. Would you like to add on?
Yeah, because university, it's not like high school where you're at school 9 to 5, or sorry, not 9 to 5, like 8 to 3 or 9 to 4. It's you have to manage your time wisely, as you said before in the previous slide. But like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, most of the times I'm outside with friends, or I'm at a cafe studying with my friends. So there's very much, you can enjoy that social life aspect, but also work hard as well. but also you can, work hard during the day, work hard during the week, and then the weekend you have time for yourself, time to, uh, think about your own mental health, because in university it's very hard, living away from home. You have a lot of things to manage, but just enjoy the environment around you, enjoy the social setting that you're in, embrace the Montreal French culture around you. It's different. It may be different from where you are, but that's going to help with your mental health as well during the school year.
Totally agree. Yeah, for sure. And also, like, you're able to do well in school, but at the same time, do get to relax and really quell that stress that you have. Sam, would you like to add on to anything?
I think Emily and Charles pretty much killed it. Work hard, play hard is literally the best way to describe one's experience at McGill. So nothing to add on here.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Ryan, do you have anything else you would like to add? No. Okay, awesome. And we'll go on to our next part of our discussion, which is about academics. So what are some specific bird courses for first years and some notable professors for those going into McGill for their first year? So Sam, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, for sure. So I just listed here 4 bird courses, or courses that I felt like were relatively easier compared to some of the other classes that I took. But then again, I feel like there's not really like one true bird course at McGill, because ultimately, McGill is highly recognized for their academic standard, right? And there's not really a class where if you can just, put in a small amount of effort and then end up getting an A, that's just not going to happen. But I definitely do think that there are some courses that are relatively easier than others. And here are the 4. So if you guys want to take notes, please do so.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. I totally agree with you about the bird course, kind of the controversy with that. Emily, would you like to talk about the bird courses that you put on the slide?
Yeah, sure. These are some of the courses that a lot of my friends have taken. I haven't taken personally, but I've heard really good things about them. ATOC 185 is natural disasters. I think it's open, both of these courses are open to everyone, I believe. And MOIR 211 is listening of music, something like that. Art of listening, yes, sorry, that's it. So yeah, I've heard really good things about both of them. If you're also interested, don't have them on the top of my head, but there's a bunch of science courses too that I have if you want to message me, or even like the science of cancer I've heard is really good. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, Emily. Yeah, but Ryan and Charles, would you like to add on to any bird courses that you thought, or notable professors that you thought were really good at McGill?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Unfortunately, my notes aren't on here, so I'm just going to add a course code into the chat. It's also MUAR. I took it last year, and it's pop music from 1945 to present. I had a friend in Art of Listening, and the amount of work that she put into it was way more than I put into this class. It is a 300 level, so there may be prereqs on the website, but there weren't any for me, and the prof just said, don't worry about it. So you should be able to jump in, no problem, and it's not intense at all. It was like the easiest day of my life. The only one that I can really say was like a genuine bird course for me was 392, so I really recommend it. The other thing is so if you are entering into U0 instead of U1, which people from Ontario who didn't do CEGEP or IB or lots of AP courses, you will be going into U0. If you're doing that and you're in arts, definitely you'll have to take like a certain number of certain types of courses. I chose to take science courses rather than language courses. And that was a huge mistake for me personally. So I took ATOC courses because I thought they would be easy, and they were like the worst things of my life. So just like remember that natural disasters, for instance, sounds like really fun for like anyone, but if you aren't actually interested in science, don't kid yourself. Like if you're interested in that genuinely, it will be great. But like I took Intro to Atmospheric Science and the Science of Storms, and they weren't nearly as fun as I had like pictured them to be. So just consider that.
Definitely, yeah. And that's the thing with bird courses as well. Like you'll do well if you're interested. If you're not, it doesn't seem like a bird course to you, for sure. Charles, would you like to add any bird courses or notable professors?
I'd say like I didn't take any bird courses because for me, I think, like I'm spending $900 on a course. I want to, like get some good things. but I also like none of the bird courses really interested me. Um, so if you're in that position, find an easy course in your department because I've been like I did a lot of music theory in high school, and I was like exhausted by it. I didn't want to look at scales again, so I didn't want to do that. But if you're in the history department and you want to take a bird course or an easy course, take a 200 level or take a 100 level course. Those are first year, second year courses. So max out as many as you can because there's also a certain limit that you can take. And I know a lot of people don't take that to their advantage. So try to take a lot of lower level courses while you can.
Thank you so much, Charles. That was really solid advice. Just to keep mind of time, I'll direct this to Sam. What online platforms are used for learning at McGill? As I know, every university is a bit different in terms of what apps they use.
Yeah, so most of the work through McGill is done on this site called My Courses. During last semester, when we went completely virtual, all the exams, lectures, etc., everything was posted on there. So it's really nice to have everything in one place.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, my courses, keep that in mind. And then I'm going to direct this question to Emily. Is there any brief advice on the application process when you apply to McGill? Just some things, pointers, tips?
Yeah, so I actually applied from the US. So for me, I just had to send in my SAT scores and I think as well as the classes that I took in high school, and there wasn't much else to it. So for me, it was pretty easy.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. We'll do for someone from Canada.
I
Ryan,
can
would
jump
you?
in if you.
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry.
Charles, go ahead. No, don't even worry.
It's your top 6 courses, and if you're in sciences, there's specific courses that you need to take. But from Ontario specifically, it's grade 12. I believe it's university level courses, and I believe there could be some mixed level. You would have to check with that. But they also look at English specifically for arts. So although your 6 can be above an 80% average, your English might need to be above an 83% on your transcript. The application process itself, it's just your marks. There's no references, it's just your information and marks.
Fair. Okay. Do you, just to add on to that, is there kind of like a general competitive average, would you say?
I wouldn't say there's specifically a competitive average. I would always take it as, if it says 80, aim for 90. And it's hard to it's very hard to get a 90, but aim for that. And at least you're on some kind of you have some safety.
For sure. Thank you so much, Charles. I'm going to go into the next topic, which is about experiences, internships, clubs, and ECs. So what clubs, ECs, and sports were you involved in your first, sports were you involved in your first 2 years? Ryan, would you like to go ahead first?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm just going into my second year, so I can only speak to first year. But one thing specifically that I'll touch on, I did a few things, and one of them was that I was the VP Finance for my hall council. So hall council, if you're in residence, is something that you can look into. But one thing that I did was getting a comfort talk. I went to the activities fair. And if you're entering this year, that will definitely be happening, but just maybe look a little bit different. I applied to be a writer for the McGill Journal of Political Science, and I wrote articles all year about politics, and that was something I had no experience with, and I knew that people were applying who were officially in poli-sci. I was just a first-year student, so totally apply for things and look at things that are interesting to you, even if you're not totally sure that you're qualified, because you probably are. And imposter syndrome is real, and people just want people who are interested. So yeah, look for things that are fun and flirty and fresh, and maybe not in your comfort zone yet, but they will be.
Totally, yeah. I mean, you're paying that much sum to go to university, and university has just an insane amount of opportunities that are just incomparable with high school, I think. So definitely put yourself out of that comfort zone. Wish I could say the same. I'm very bad at writing, but that's awesome, Ryan. Emily, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, one of the biggest mistakes that I made in first year was not attending any extracurriculars. I was pretty like cooped up in my room, like studying, or I was just kind of like with my friends. So I didn't get to get involved in both like fun extracurriculars as well as academic extracurriculars that could help you. But this year I joined MCERT, which I previously mentioned. It's like, yeah, it's just like a paramedic team that's on campus that helps out the residences as well as all the events that happen at McGill. I also attended a lot of wine and cheeses this year, which was a really great way to kind of get to know the profs that year, like the profs that you go see every day, like, but on a personal level, because these classes are really huge, like 200, 300 people. So that's like kind of a really good way for them to get to know you. And then later you can like email them about research opportunities and just kind of talk about really cool things that they're researching right now. Yeah, and another great extracurricular that I found was just playing intramural sports. So right now I'm on the volleyball team, and it's just a really good like stress reliever, especially for during like midterm season and like just, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. Yeah, I'm pretty sure on every campus, every university, they should have something similar to like the MCERT. I think, I mean, from what I see, they look like a very close-knit community. So yeah, awesome. Sam, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, for sure. So during my first year, I spent some time on the McGill basketball team. I'm not sure how many of you, are looking to play college sports, but if you guys do, and you also want to, do well academically, you guys really have to be a master of your calendar, and you really have to plan ahead. When I first got there, it was like I was so shocked by how much time I had to invest into, being on the basketball team. From doing like individual workouts to team practice to weightlifting sessions, it was just a lot. So yeah, if any of you do want to play university sports and want some advice, feel free to message me as well.
That's a very unique experience. Yeah, I had roommates also in varsity sports. Their schedule is absolutely insane. But yeah, definitely message Sam if you have any questions about varsity sports in uni. Charles, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I volunteer for Smooth Service. Smooths are undergraduate student union, and it's called Drive Safe. So we drive students home at night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for free. So if you are outside at a bar or even at the library and you just need a lift home, you don't want to walk home, we just pick you up and drive you home. I was also involved in the Model United Nations groups or conferences at McGill as well. It's a great time to, just kind of get out of the classroom setting for a couple of days and have some fun. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles. And then we're going to go on to our next one. Are there any first year internships or research opportunities available at McGill? And Ryan, you could go ahead.
I don't have any experience with this, so.
Okay, fair. Sam, would you like to go ahead? Because I know that you have quite a list of jobs.
Yeah, for sure. So most of my internship opportunities I actually found outside of McGill, but I'm pretty sure Charles mentioned earlier that, if you guys are looking for internships/research opportunities within McGill, I would highly recommend you to go see your professors. They're always actively doing things on their own. And also within specific departments, I believe, within management, science, and arts, they have specific places where you can go to look for internship opportunities, and they can connect you through that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Emily, would you like to add on to what Sam said?
Yeah, I think another great platform to use is the My Future website. I think it's available to every McGill student, but I think if you're in management, you have a specific My Future website. It's pretty much a site that lists like a bunch of jobs that are around the area. You can kind of search and filter like what type of job you want, whether it's like research or if you want an on-campus job like serving at the Res Cafe. Yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Charles, would you like to add on to anything as well?
Yeah, to be blunt, the Faculty of Arts at McGill doesn't have a lot of money compared to other universities. I'll just be very honest with you. So there's very limited research opportunities as a first year. But as you go into the upper years, you get to know your professors and you get to know what kind of, what fields of interest you're looking into, you want to research specialize in. And, you discuss that with your professors. Sometimes your professors have opportunities for you, or they'll link you to another professor who does. I've had my professor offer me opportunities outside the university and where he knew someone and he would connect me to that person in another organization. So, like very, go to those wine and cheese, like Emily said, know your professors, go to office hours. I also found all my jobs outside of McGill. But if you are a first year, you don't know French, you don't speak French, you need a job, there's a lot of opportunities at McGill on the campus. Like Emily said, working at the CAF. The student union also hires students. That's also a great way to meet other fellow students, whether you're involved in student politics or not. So, if you need that financial support, you need a job, and you can't speak French, there are also, ways that you can find a job for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Charles. Yeah, definitely keep in mind. Forgot about that, having to speak French as well in Montreal. Yeah, let's go into our next section of our discussion, which is about residence. So what was your residence experience like at McGill? Is there a best residence? What are some pros and cons? And how does the meal plan work at McGill? So Sam, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, so during my first year, I stayed at New Res, and this place is literally a hotel. When students leave during the summer, it actually does turn into a hotel. I had an awesome experience, but I guess one con I remembered was that most of my American friends who were studying in American universities, the way that their meal plan worked was they'd be given a card and they could just buy whatever they want with that card. But for McGill, at least at New Res, we were charged individually for what we wanted to eat. And, I was on the basketball team in my first year, so I ended up spending a lot of money on food. So that's kind of one thing I wish that we did differently.
That was a good point. Thank you, Sam. Ryan, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. I was also in New Res, so that kind of encapsulates my experience as well. The only thing I'll say, I'm not sure, Charles, if you were in upper or anything, and I can't speak to that directly, but okay. So it seems like we're all like hotel residences, as they would call them if we all went to residence. So there's kind of like New Res, Licit, and C4 are all the like hotel type residences. And the one thing that someone from upper residence or one of the traditional residences might say if they were here is that it's more of a traditional social life in one of those residences, whereas being in a hotel experience can kind of be slightly more isolating. And that's not experience. That experience is not for everyone. My floor was really hype and I met a lot of people on it, and you can totally have that experience. And similarly, you could be in a traditional style and whatever. So just whatever works for you. I will say, like, if you want to get a good night's sleep and if you want kind of the comfort of like what you experience in a hotel, it is really nice. And I was really happy with my choice in New Res.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. Emily, you were in a res that was not New Res.
Yeah, I was in La Citadelle, which is another one of the hotel reses. It's super close to campus. I really liked my experience there because that's where I found all my friends. They lived on either like the same floor or a few floors below me. It's a lot smaller than New Res. It doesn't have its own cafe. Like dining hall, which is kind of annoying because then you'll have to either go to like New Res or RBC. But I found that a lot of people like didn't particularly enjoy their time at Licit. I know a lot of people found that it was pretty cliquey and that, if you couldn't find your group, it was a bit exclusive. And, but mainly a lot of international kids come to Licit, a lot of Americans and just like, yeah, also just.
Interesting. Thank you, Emily. Charles, would you like to add on to anything?
Yeah, I was also at a hotel style residence, Carrefour Sherbrooke or C4. Like what was said before, know what you want. Do you want, like the traditional dormitory style, or do you want a hotel style residence? I was in a hotel style residence, and all of my friends are from extracurricular activities or from classes. I had a roommate, but we weren't that close. So it didn't matter for me. It wasn't, you know, a big down, or it didn't like affect my residence experience. But you know, it really depends on what type of person you are. I would also say Montreal winter is treasures. So I would recommend that you go to a residence with a cafeteria. It's very nice. You know, you put like a cap on, just go downstairs and get food and just go back to your room on a Sunday morning. But if you live in, you know, with Citadel, it's very hard to go because, well, you have to cross the street and go out, but just going out in -20, -30 weather isn't something that you want to do.
Definitely, yeah, I totally agree. Winters can be brutal. So on to the next one. What and how is the transportation for getting around campus? I feel like everyone here is probably stayed in res, but are there any recommendations for commuters as well? So Emily, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, so as I said, I lived really close to campus. It's probably a 5 to 10 minute walk everywhere. I know some of my friends who are from Quebec and Montreal, they just metro from their houses, and there is a McGill discount for the month. I think maybe like $50 or $60 or $90 for a month, but it's like unlimited, so it's super easy to like go back and forth from your house or to campus. The only thing is that like they close at around 1 or 2 a.m. So if you're staying out late, you do have to be a bit careful about that and like kind of make plans for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. Very solid advice. Sam, would you like to add on to anything that Emily said?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess one big piece of advice I would have for incoming freshmen would be to kind of schedule your classes together throughout the day. So you don't have to like go back and forth from home to campus. You know, like Charles said, winter in Montreal is absolutely terrible. Like you do not want to walk around in -20, -30 degree weather back and forth. So if you guys can schedule all your classes within clusters during the day, I would highly recommend that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. Charles or Ryan, would you like to add on to anything that Emily and Sam said?
Just to really quickly jump on what Sam said, two things I underestimated when I was signing up for classes for first year. Like professor ratings. Go on Rate My Prof. I know that's unrelated, but just thinking about it, I just didn't consider it. And then the other, take them with a grain of salt, but the other thing is look at a map of McGill and consider that when you're planning your classes. Like don't just actually take that into consideration. Like Stewart Bio is killer. And you will probably end up not going to that class because of the hill and the distance. So just take a look at a map, understand kind of how and when your classes are taking place. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. I just have one question that is my own curiosity. I didn't tour McGill. Is it a small or a pretty big campus, would you say?
Comment on that, I would say, like, adding on to Ryan, think of it like, look at the map, but on a terrain. It's on a mountain. So it's a pretty small campus considering other schools, but don't think you can go from one end of the campus to another in 10 minutes. Yeah, so look at a map, but like with the terrain setting on, especially when it's the winter, you know, like I've seen some people like climb or like people ski or snowboard down
That's so funny.
hill. So just, yeah, be careful with that. You know, I had an 8:30 up the hill. I went the first week and I stopped going. So yeah.
Definitely, yeah. 8:30s are brutal. I never went to mine. Same with my roommate. So that was fun. Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. And then our last part of our discussion is just financial aid. So what are some financial resources for both externally and at McGill, maybe some of your personal experience, anything to do with scholarships, bursaries, and awards? Charles, would you like to continue on?
Sure. So McGill has 3 categories of tuition, unlike other Canadian universities. If you're from in province, so you're Québécois, or out of province, Canadian, that means Canadian citizen or permanent resident or refugee status, or if you're an international student. So there's 3 categories. The international students, you're in tens of thousands. Canadian, you're almost like around 10,000, I would say. In Quebecois, you're about less than $5,000 per year. Depends on the program as well. If you're from Ontario, you're still eligible for OSAP. You actually get more, considering that you're not living from home. You also can apply to first year entrance scholarships, where some of them are renewable and some of them are not. You have to fill out an application for that separately. You can apply for a first year entrance bursary, and that can be renewed every year. You just have to do an interview process. And there's also in-course financial aid, which is scholarships or depending on your grade point average GPA in your classes, you might get some amount. If you are interested in taking French language courses at McGill, they are at the price of in province, so they're like $200, $300 a course instead of $900 that you would pay as a out of province Canadian student. So it's not a relatively cheap price. You're learning French, so it's an added benefit if you want to say. And on top of this, there's also work study program. So if you want to work and work while you're in school, there are special job opportunities for you, specifically for work study students that you can take advantage of.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles. It was really extensive, very in-depth. Emily, considering that you are actually an international student, is there anything that you would like to talk about for financial resources?
Yeah, so for international students, your tuition is going to be a lot more expensive than if you're a Canadian resident or if you're a Quebec resident. Definitely look towards external scholarships. They're really, really handy to just like help out in any way they can. So I would recommend just applying to a bunch of like little scholarships, whether it's like $100 or like $1,000. They'll really help. Yeah, I think I personally missed the first year entrance scholarship, so I would definitely look at the deadline for that because I think it's a pretty early one. But other than that, yeah, just
Awesome.
look for entrance scholarships.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Just to ask really quickly, is it not like an audit? Like I understand some people when they apply to the university, you get the automatic kind of scholarship for entrance. Is it a separate application then?
I think it was probably like with the application. I think it was no. I think if you guys have like Minerva, you had to like log on to that and like apply separately. Is the thing, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. Sam or Ryan, would you like to add on to anything that Charles and Emily said?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So for me, fully honestly, like I'm a Loran Scholar, which for those of you who are familiar with the program is fairly extensive in its funding. My tuition's covered and I'm given an additional $10,000 a year for expenses. And I'm just being upfront about those numbers only because I want to mention that I still had to pay out of pocket for first year at McGill. Specifically, first year is incredibly expensive because our residences here are expensive and the meal plans are expensive. And disproportionately so on both cases than the Montreal housing and food markets. So it's an incredibly expensive first year, even in relation to your other years at McGill, kind of no matter where you're coming from. There are ways to avoid that. You can find an apartment outside of the McGill residences if you need to, but residence is a really important kind of, I think, important aspect of first year experiences. So apply for financial aid. If you're going in this year, you may have missed deadlines, but send emails because I applied for financial aid even though I had Loran because I knew that there was a gap. I applied for $2,500 because I thought that was fair considering how much I was getting and how much I needed, but it still wouldn't have covered everything. But even just by putting in the amounts that I was getting, McGill gave me $8,000, which is way more than I asked for and incredibly helpful. So apply for financial aid because they're especially generous for first year because they know it's a more expensive year. And I know so many people who just didn't apply for financial aid because they didn't think they'd get it. And trust me, that 15, 20 minutes that it takes could give you thousands of dollars. Apply, even if you're not sure. Apply. It also kind of indicates that there are a lot of very wealthy people who go to McGill who don't need that money if I got that money. So just apply, it won't hurt, and it could be incredibly helpful.
Definitely. I wish I took that advice in my first year as well. Sam, would you like to add on?
Yeah, just really quick, plus one to what Ryan said, because if you guys never apply, you never know, right? Definitely take that opportunity to look for scholarships and also just be aware of deadlines, as Emily said. I also missed, the opportunity to apply for the first year entrance scholarship, and I regret it immensely. So definitely be aware of deadlines.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Sam. And I believe that is the end of our panel discussion. Awesome. So now is our open Q&A period. So feel free to drop any of your questions in the chat and I'll look through them and see which ones we can answer. Seems like our panelists did a really good job at answering, everyone. Yeah, feel free to drop any questions in the chat box right now. I guess we can just like highlight this question. So how rigorous is McGill academically? I understand a lot of people do say that McGill is like the Harvard of Canada, but how rigorous is McGill academically? Was your program very difficult, would you say, compared to maybe some university students from other universities? Anyone can take this question.
I'll just say, like, it's super faculty by faculty, I think, at every school. And so for me in arts, I came from a small town high school where like grading was not competitive. I would get really high grades, even though I knew I wasn't putting in my best effort all the time. And I had never had an experience in like a competitive schooling environment. So I was really shocked at how not super challenging my courses were, which is definitely not everyone's experience, and that's totally fine. But I prepped myself for a more academically rigorous program than it was. Again, that's coming from arts. And I think the biggest thing is that some people, you may need to use resources that are there. So for instance, McGill has a writing center that a lot of people will need to go to because you may not know how to write academically, and that's fine, but it's an incredibly important tool to have. But those resources are out there, and overall for me, I was surprised that it wasn't an awful first year in terms of academics at all.
Fair. Thank you so much, Ryan. Yeah, I totally agree with at universities, there are those workshops, amazing centers that help with whatever subject that you may need help in. And it's definitely a very useful resource to tap into. Does anyone else want to add on to what Ryan said? Maybe someone who's not from arts, just to give a different perspective.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. So in high school, I took the International Baccalaureate. And I guess one big distinguishing factor is that with the IB, we covered courses that spanned over 2 years. And one of the hardest adjustments that I had when I first got to McGill, the semesters go by in 4 months, right? So what I noticed was that what we would normally cover, in IB, that over like 2 years, we could do within 4 months. So that was very challenging in the beginning, just being able to, follow. And I guess this is kind of a rough estimate, but I'm, estimating with classes, I'm guessing that I'd spent around 8 to 10 hours a week per class. I'm not sure, might be different for the other panelists, but that's kind of what I think I did.
Fair. Thank you so much, Sam, for that. Okay, now we have some questions popping in. So one from Rachel is like, what are the best resources that are not usually publicized at McGill? Emily or Charles, would you like to take that question?
Sure. Sorry. Sorry, I thought you were gonna say. I think McGill Reddit is very it's fire. You get all your resources there. There's a first year mega thread. There's like you write anything and people will answer you either sarcastically or with facts. So it's very helpful. There's also another website, I forgot what it's called, but it gives you everything about the residences, frosh, course selection. It's just, yeah, because when I first applied, it was a different name than what it's now. So if any of the other panelists remember, that website, it'd be helpful. But yeah, and there's also something called the VSB, the Visual Schedule Builder. So that kind of plans your schedule. Well, you type in your course code and it'll show where your classes are. So that was very helpful for me because there's no guidance counselors in university.
Yeah, Yeah, go
The
ahead, Emily.
schedule builder is definitely such a big helper. I didn't know it existed when I was like scheduling my first year courses, so I did it all by hand, and it got so messy. But another thing that's really helpful is it's a Chrome extension called McGill Enhanced. And so if you get the extension, you can kind of access, so like when you click on different courses on the McGill website, like the official one, it lists all the grade point averages of like every single semester or year. And it's like a really good way to kind of gauge how you can do in that class.
Definitely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles and Emily. Next question was, did any of you guys study abroad? Maybe any of you guys who were interested in studying abroad, how was the process of applying? Maybe some of your friends have studied abroad. Any of you guys would like to take the floor?
Yeah, so I actually did study abroad at the University of Sydney, and it was honestly one of the best experiences of my life. So if any of you are interested in doing that, I highly recommend it. In terms of the process, I think it was relatively simple. You fill in an application form and you can list like your top 3 destinations, and you just write really brief, 3 to 4 sentences of why you want to go to that school. I think for the most part, people usually get into at least their top 2. And there was another question. Oh yeah, which year? Most people do it in their 3rd year of the winter semester. And one big piece of advice I'd give is to make sure that your credits are aligned. So check in with your professor and check in with your faculty to ensure that you are getting the necessary credits in order for you to graduate on time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. When did you start applying to study abroad? Like when did the applications open, would you say?
So if you wanted to plan to go during the winter semester, the application process starts in the fall.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Sam.
Just to add to that,
yeah, go ahead.
I was supposed to go actually, like my flight was supposed to leave next week,
No.
but it got canceled. Just know that you have to wait 1 semester before graduating. So if you're supposed to graduate at the end of winter, you need to do it in the fall because it takes 1 full semester for your marks to be transferred from your exchange university back to McGill. So make sure you don't want to, delay your graduation for that.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely take a look at the kind of credits and aligning them. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of questions now. I'm gonna try to see. One person asked, what extracurriculars do you think really helped boost your application going into McGill? Ryan, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think extracurriculars are a part of the application. It's just grades. So you really, there are things that are going to be useful at school, but in terms of the application, if you're worried about getting in, it's not a consideration in McGill.
Fair. Yeah, I heard that's the kind of similar situation with McMaster as well. It's really just solely on grades. Some people do wish that they were able to focus on ECs on the application, but yeah. This one I would say go to Sam. Do you think IB was more beneficial and credited than AP in university in McGill?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that because I never took any AP courses, but I know with McGill, there's a very clear cut level as to, what you would want to get in order to get into McGill. So during high school, my counselor was like, okay, if you get, IB score above this, you're almost guaranteed a spot. I guess it's better in that sense, but yeah, having not taken AP, I'm not sure how to compare those.
I took a bunch of AP courses in high school, and I think a bunch of international students have as well, but it really helps for if you want to skip a bunch of the freshman courses that you're required to take. So, and a lot of times you can also just completely skip your first year too.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Charles, would you like to add on? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, would you? Okay. Moving on. Just really briefly, how Sarah asked, how many hours do you generally spend for studying each day? I know Sam said about 10 hours for each class, really, for during the week, right? Would any of you guys just like to briefly say a quantitative number?
Yeah, probably around 2 hours for each class every day.
Fair. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say like I did like maybe like 3 or 4 hours a week. I'm more of like the last minute type. I'm the type of person who writes a 4,000 word paper in 24 hours before it's due. Um, so yeah, it really depends on the type of person you are.
Fair. No,
Yeah.
that was me. That was me. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, for me, it's not even like I couldn't even put it into those terms because it's like if I don't have anything due in that week for that class, I'm not opening that notebook, like, to be honest. But there's nothing wrong with that. The classes that you will do the best in are the ones that you're genuinely interested in the content in, and you'll find for those classes you actually have to study less in terms of like tests, at least in arts, because you've been listening to the prof the whole time and you care about what's been said, and that's really huge. But yeah, so if it's a class that I'm not that interested in and there's nothing that week that's going to improve my mark, I'm not going to open the textbook anyway. So it totally depends per class. There are some times when one class needs a lot of attention and other classes don't, but average I would be closer to Charles. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so
As
much,
an
Ryan.
arts and as an art student, I would say like, political science, we do a lot of readings, like a couple hundred pages a week of readings. And like once after first year, you get a sense of what readings you need to do and what readings you don't need to do. So, that first year, you can be sitting in front of the printer, printing off like 800, like 500 pages of readings, but you don't really need to do that. There's also reading groups that people form. They make Facebook groups for the class and divide up the readings and share their notes. So use your time effectively and pick and choose readings that you need to do and the ones that you don't need to.
Definitely. I really recommend reaching out to upper years as well who've taken the class as well. They can really give you that insight on what we're kind of really required. Obviously, the professor would say like everything, but not necessarily. And just to keep in terms of time, we'll have one last question. One person asked, do you get to have a say in who you'd like to share your room with in residence, I'd say?
You do. I think if any of you guys are in the McGill Entering Class page on Facebook, there's spreadsheets for each dorm, and so you can go into the spreadsheet and kind of write your name and like a bunch of stuff about yourself. And a lot of people have met on the spreadsheet for like their roommates, and they'll like DM you, and you can kind of like get to know each other more and decide if you want to be roommates or not. Otherwise, you can also just go for random. I know I went for random, and I ended up meeting like my best friend there. So.
Awesome. That's really nice to hear, Emily. Anyone else would like to add? Okay, awesome. We'll just call that a day. Obviously feel free to contact any of our lovely panelists. They would love to talk to you. I'm sure they don't bite as well. So if you have any questions, definitely connect with them through their LinkedIn. Also, this slide deck will be uploaded on our on LEAP's website tomorrow as well.